Are you free to be whoever you want to be? Could you be any different than you are? Are we in control of our lives? I spoke with 9 leading experts to understand what it means to be free.
You can't be self-determining without choice, but giving people more choice does not necessarily make them more self-determining.
Regrets, at least how we define, is really related with our responsibility of our choice.
Our regret has to be dependent on the degree to which we did have the freedom or didn't have the freedom.
Why do we believe we are in charge?
People often ask me, do you believe in free will? And then I say, well, it depends on what you mean.
What is determinism? The view that nothing can ever happen otherwise than it does, from the Big Bang to now.
Of course, there's no free will in the sense that the future is already there. It's just that right now I don't know what it's going to be because I can't compute it.
Maybe you think it would be nice if we could make both choices or something like that.
We get
How unfortunate it would be if the way the world is put together, that we are not the authors of our lives. In 1973, I was building a dedicated purpose computer, a thermostat, a game. We had a few other ideas. The idea of a personal computer where people would program it seemed totally absurd. And so when I went to meetings with Steve Jobs and Bill Gates, I was the guy who was saying, listen, let's make something a computer can do and have them buy what it can do, not buy it for itself. And I was totally wrong about that. The personal computer was a wonderful thing, and it did change lives of all kinds, and people had a great interest. Looking back, there's a path. I might have decided to put a program in it and sell it as a personal computer.
What else could I learn from these conversations? When reviewing them, I started to notice patterns, recurring themes. Despite all their disagreements about the nature of the universe or the meaning of freedom, they all shared similar insights on how to go about life. As though all the big questions they had looked into had brought them the same wisdom. The first lesson was acknowledging randomness in life.
My first son was born when I was 19, so I had this really busy life where I'm raising a little family, and one day I ran into a teacher of mine on the bus, and the University of Michigan was only 40 miles away. He said, oh, you should apply there, and then he mentioned some other places. So I applied there, and I got in. It put me on a track I didn't know I was going to be on.
Almost everything about the trajectory my life has taken has been a lucky accident.
many things in my life happen, without any decision. So my research is very far from my actual experience.
My aspiration when I started college was to be a writer. I don't think I knew what that meant. More specifically, I was a fanatic follower of sports. So what I imagined myself being was a sports writer for a newspaper. I happened to take an introductory psychology course from one of the most dynamic teachers on the planet. That made me a psychologist. I didn't know what psychology was.
There are many events in life that can surprise us and it can be very outliers in our life anyway. And they can activate something that maybe we are or we have in our mind, but we need something special, some special inputs to generate more creative thought and creative decisions.
I think luck does play a factor. I mean, for me, when I decided to go to graduate school and wound up at the lab where it was the first split brain patient in the world, that defines luck. That's luck.
There are a few people who are, it's just obvious they had to do this, like Mozart and music or something,
Yeah.
Yeah, I kind of wonder what would have happened. What would Mozart have been had his parents never given him a piano?
I think he would have found his way to music whatever happened.
Really?
Yes, I do actually. I think so. That I don't think it's that contingent. You might well not have found your way to it, but it was. That's true. You might have seen something else. Maybe the thing you really like best you haven't yet discovered.
Exactly. That's crazy, isn't it?
That can be a little alarming sometimes to think. There must be. It's like there is a best person in the world for me to marry, And what are the chances I meet that person? 0.
It can be frightening sometimes to realize how close we came to not becoming who we are, and the randomness seems unfair. Some people get lucky, and others don't. How to not feel a little dispossessed by this?
There's an analogy with Blackjack that I use sometimes that moves some people. So games like that are a mixture of skill and chance. So there's the luck in the cards that you're going to get. But there's also the skill in what you do with them, when you take a hit, when you don't take a hit, and so on. So if you like Blackjack and you don't want to be stupid about it, you memorize some good probability tables and you come up with a strategy and you play it. And so there's a lot of chance involved for you and for the guy next to you who maybe just by chance gets the same cards as you and loses money, but you win. So, life can be like that too.
What I often try to write back to someone is that the things that are happening in the world and the things that are happening to them in particular have an element of randomness. And if they were open to this randomness and felt willing to kind of explore the possibilities, whether trivial matters like what to eat for breakfast or larger matters, what's happening in their work, that can be leveraged into being creative. And that is, to me, the ultimate exhibit of their freedom, to be someone who can contribute new information into the world that none of us ever had before and increase the whole vast sum of human knowledge.
When I was 19, I decided to make a list of things I regretted, things I regretted doing, and things I regretted not doing. And I realized that almost everything was in the second category. So I just promised myself, from now on, whenever I'm really torn about whether to do something or not, just do it. And I've never looked back since then.
I think I'm aware of myself that I just make jumps, as it were. Don't sort of balance and reflect about would this be the best decision for my life at all. There is a danger of overthinking.
If I catch myself really thinking hard about it, usually it's because doing it isn't such a crazy idea. And then I just do it. Life is short.
Big changes are driven or by very big decisions, essentially, or by events that happen to us, and we should just to be ready to take them, essentially, and to follow them. And I'm a follower, essentially. So,
another example would be taking a job in Texas. Everyone said, "Hey, you can't go to Texas." And when we flew into America, the guy said, "What do you do?" Philosophy. He said, "Do they have philosophy in Texas?" So anyway, that was a bit of a leap. I just thought, wherever you go, it creates an interesting situation, and then you go from there.
We don't always have conclusive reasons for choosing as we do. That's what makes life interesting. We're basically putting a bet on the future. And we're saying whether it's the right choice or not, we'll have to find out by engaging in what John Stuart Mill calls experiments in living. I think free choice is very related to the idea of experimenting with your future here and going in one direction or another and not being sure. That's why regret can be there.
They had all taken chances in their lives and been fairly successful. I was curious then if they had any what-if moments, any regrets about their past decisions. And their reaction to this question surprised me, because I didn't expect to get, in almost every case, the same answer.
No regrets.
Wait, I'll get to this in a second.
I don't actually have anything on my list since age 19 that I regret not doing.
It's a boring answer.
I'm just blank on that, and it may be just because I don't think about the past much. I can't.
Nothing comes to mind, actually.
Do other people have answers to this question?
Yeah.
I have no idea.
I never regret much in my life, as such. I'm in a sense, but because of luck.
I am the least regretful person you ever met in your life. I don't do regret.
I just don't have many regrets. I've been so fortunate in the decisions I've made over the years.
Do I regret taking up philosophy? No. Do I regret going ahead with having the child at 24? No, I'm absolutely delighted.
Well, there are a couple of decisions where I occasionally think, what would my life have been if I had, but I don't regret. I'm curious.
I could have gone to medical school, and I went to graduate school instead of PhD. Do you regret that? No. And I'm sure if I had gone to medical school and say, well, did you regret you didn't go? No.
Maybe I regret going on holiday with my parents when I got back from Israel in 1969 because a girl I liked turned up when I was away. Yeah, that's the only one that comes to mind.
I was offered a job as the dean of a school in New York, and I sometimes wonder, if I had taken it, would I have been able to succeed? Would we have created something extraordinary, in what is basically the world's best laboratory, Lower Manhattan? So I have I'll go to my grave with all these questions about what would have happened if I had done it, but not with any regrets.
This was amazing to me. Because I think if you ask most people in their 20s or 30s today what their biggest regret in life is, they'll all have something to say. Why wasn't it the case here? And I think the reason for this can be boiled down to one word: temperance. In relation to how you view the past, the present, and the future.
Almost don't think about my past. It's just you get up in the morning and you know what you want to do in the day and you do it. And we sometimes say some people are just happy-go-lucky. They live from day to day, and that seems to us to be a model of a good life. That's one model.
The way in which we reconstruct, we see ourselves over time, or also, in different situations, can affect our decision making, and this applies for depression, bad moods, disorder with moods, and many other situations where we should somehow we should regret less, essentially.
All the issues about free will for me just get trumped by, what's done is done. I'm just forward-looking. I think, here I am now, that's what matters. What I do now, well, you try to do the best you can now and look forward. And there is a model, a spiritual model that says, live in the present.
If you spend your own life thinking about roads not traveled, anytime something in the road you are traveling goes amiss, every speed bump you hit, you can think about how on one of these roads not traveled, you wouldn't have hit that speed bump. And it's going to make you think that the road you are traveling on is not the road you should be traveling on. How do you train yourself to benefit more from downward counterfactuals, from comparing yourself to yourself at worse times or to other people who have it worse? It turns out that there are exercises that people can do that make them more likely to benefit from these downward comparisons. So there's something that's known as the gratitude exercise, where at the end of the day, you have a little pad at your bed. When you go to bed at night, you write down 2 or 3 things that happened during the day that you're grateful for, you know. Not huge things, not life-altering things. And what happens is if you do this on a regular basis, it becomes habitual. And without the habit of thinking about what was good in your day yesterday, you won't. You'll mostly think about what was not good in your day yesterday.
I once heard a program about 3 traveling salesmen, and I always thought what a miserable job it was. And they all 3 of them said, "This is the best job in the world." And I think that people that adapt, you know how it is also, you move into an area of town, it's pretty grotty. After 6 months, you kind of like it. And so I think that we adapt, and we actually come to think that it's best what we're actually doing very often. Do you know about Nietzsche's notion of amor fati, love of fate? Well, Nietzsche said that the real achievement, moral achievement in life, is to accept your life in every detail and love it. I wonder whether most people don't become more accepting anyway as they get older.
The older you are, the less likely you are to be a maximizer. And I think this is a very revealing finding, because there's a puzzle in the literature on sort of successful aging, which has become more and more of an issue as the world's population keeps getting older. Older people are in general happier than younger people. And this is a puzzle. You know, now that I'm entering this period in life, you know, things that used to be easy are now hard. You don't remember people's names. You don't remember telephone numbers. It kind of sucks to me, as people like to say, getting old is not for sissies. So how can it be that older people are happier than younger people? And I think a significant component of the answer is that older people, one of the things that experience teaches people is that good enough is almost always good enough. So their aspirations go down, their expectations go down. They manage to achieve results that meet these aspirations and expectations, and that's the secret. If you have incredibly high aspirations, you may get better results, but if they're not as good as the results you're aspiring to, you'll feel bad about whatever results you get.
Why did I go on with philosophy in the first instance? Because I had 3 years grant money, and it's just, you know, I was a bit of a hippie at the time, and I thought, well, I'll just try some more. I enjoyed it. And so I've been drifting in a way.
When you start down a path and you get into it, I don't know, you're having so damn much fun. Why would you stop it? You just, well, what is this? What's the next thing? I don't know what the next thing is, but it just keeps getting better. You know? Just roll with it. Just keep going.
The only thing I give myself credit for is not that I made decisions, but that I was smart enough to realize that I had a good thing when I did. You know, the chance event that set me on my life course was having had this psychology class as an 18-year-old. I can't give myself any credit for having made a wise decision. I can give myself credit for having realized that something got me excited. So I regard all these things as happy accidents, and the only decisions I made were decisions that basically said, boy, you really have it good. Just protect it.
Most of their insights had been about how we decide, how to appreciate the outcome, how not to focus on what we gave up. But I wondered if there were any lessons about what to decide. Of all the things we can want, what should we prioritize if we want a good life? Was there even a good answer? I didn't ask this outright, but there were lessons to learn here too. Of the 9 men I spoke with, only 2 knew straight away what their biggest regret in life was. And this was the first clue.
We have been fortunate and unfortunate in our children. My oldest Russell, Hillary. He was very happy, very loving, creative. He went the first 2 years here at the university in computer engineering. But the tragedy here of our life is this. He developed schizophrenia, but we didn't know it until about age 19, when he actually started to hear voices. Prior to that, there are only small hints, and we didn't see them. His behavior was becoming more and more erratic. And he said to me, Dad, he said, where has my life gone? He eventually died at age 27 in an car accident. What we regret is that we misrepresented and misunderstood what was going on. And if we had started earlier, we might have tried to get him medicines and whatever. And if we had, I think things might have gone different. He might still be alive.
I know which one it is. My mother died of pancreatic cancer. And I loved my mother a lot. I saw her a lot. We spoke on the phone every week. She was only 71 when she died. She just turned 71. And, once I knew she had cancer, I told her how much I loved her and cared about her and so on. But it had to mean less to her then, knowing the circumstances, than it would have meant if I had done it sooner. And so I regret not doing it sooner.
These two regrets didn't have to do with careers, or passions, or misdeeds, but with the loss of loved ones, a child, a mother. Relationships were the aspect of life that had affected them the most. And so when looking across my conversations for hints about what matters in life, the most common theme came as no surprise.
There has been a huge amount of research in the last 20 years on the determinants of happiness. And there seems to be a kind of consensus about what matters. And this is work that's been done across time and also across countries and cultures. The single most important determinant of happiness is close relations with other people. The second most important determinant of happiness is work you care about. Money matters. I used to argue, look, money basically, once you cross subsistence, it doesn't make any difference anymore. That turns out not to be true. Richer is happier. But the curve relating wealth to happiness gets very flat very fast. In the US, $70,000 salary is about as good as it gets. There are an awful lot of people who are struggling to make that $70,000 into 75 or 100 or 200. There may be other reasons for doing it, but if your aim is to be happy, you should be spending your time on other things. And there is this joke, nobody says on their deathbed, oh, if only I had spent more time working.
The external circumstances of life are not really as it were, job and structural are not really what matters so much. I think there are all these huge dividing lines in the human population. I can think of about 20, but one of them is this, that I'm just reading Oliver Sacks's autobiography, and he used to go off these long motorbike rides on his own and travel a lot on his own. I would never want to do that. I know that the thing that's most important for me is to be getting on well with another human being.
People get more satisfaction out of activities than out of things. Doing stuff makes you happier than having stuff. The question is, why is it that doing should be more satisfying than having? And it turns out, what evidence we have suggests that much of the time when we are doing things, we're doing things with other people. What that means is that it's never going to be the same thing. You go to the movies with your romantic partner, it's never the same thing, because part of the experience is the interaction that the two of you have. So you don't adapt to this because it's going to be different every time. If it's just, a beautiful car that you have or a beautiful piece of furniture in your living room, well, after a few weeks, it's just going to be your couch or your car. That's not true with other people. It takes time and effort to cultivate and sustain relations with other people. It's the hardest thing we do. It's the most complex, dynamic, and you can't take them for granted and just wave your hand at them and neglect them in the service of these other goals.
When you want to figure things out about our universe, right, part of the fun of figuring it out is that you have people you can talk with who are interested in what you find out. In a way, the cruelest punishment would be if you're the last person alive on the planet and when you can figure all these things out and then you can't share the joy with anybody. And we have an expression in Swedish, delad glädje är dubbel glädje. Shared joy is double joy.
I wouldn't want to go and see anything great without someone else. So I know that's what it is for me, the happy life.
I did finally go on to study philosophy at Yale. That's where I met my wife. She was the most beautiful girl I saw on campus. One day, as I walked by, she grabbed my arm and she said, "I think you have something to contribute to this conversation." I wasn't even in on the conversation. That just grabbing my arm that day rather than letting me go, that changed my life. Because for one thing, I wouldn't be down here in Texas.
I think the single best decision I've ever made was to marry Mele, my wife. But that's the reason I'm so happy all the time.
I'd have to say meeting my wife, current wife, for one thing, and so she's American. I certainly wouldn't be teaching in Texas right now.
Finding my wife in a very remote place in the world, we realized that we almost grew up together.
I met my wife when we were in junior high school. I don't give myself credit for having met her. I give myself credit for having appreciated that this was really the right person for me to spend my life with.
We've had 6 children, and none of them were ever sullen. Every parent tells you, the teenage years are terrible. We had a fantastic time during the teenage years. Whoa. Hey, honey. Hey. You can cut that out, right? Yeah.
My dad is still alive. I went to his 90th birthday party last year. I talk to him every week on the phone. I'm not going to screw up with my dad.
Is that my granddaughter? Oh, Leah, come on in and say hello again.
The world is disenchanted. The world is no darn good. They don't want to live in it. Oh, my. Je me suis fait tout petit devant une poupée.
I know.